A wise man once told me, you always make the world better than you found it. Your kids will appreciate you for it. This is my father, always rebuilding and making the world better around me since I was a kid. And he was always a leader while he did it, because the very first things he did in the morning when he woke me up was said, "Follow me." And I followed him, or he would have made me pay for it. I grew up in a wonderful house in Youngstown, Ohio, normal everyday kid, everyday friends, everyday life. And I remember very specifically in the year 1985, while my sister was in the house watching the Jeffersons, I went outside during a storm to pick up hailstones. 30 seconds later, that happened. The tornado of '85 wrecked everything I ever knew growing up as a kid. It took a lot in our family to be able to overcome and rebuild and learn how to rebuild as a family. Because I specifically remember 2 weeks after this tornado, when my father finally came back to the United States, he thought his children and his wife were dead because he didn't recognize the area which he used to call home. Instilled in me at this very age was the ability to rebuild and the ability to see a vision and build towards it. And from 9 years old on, we started to rebuild. And let me tell you, through the judicious eyes of a 9-year-old boy, this is nirvana. Because I got to play with everybody else's stuff that was in my yard, and I had plenty of materials to make all the forts I'd ever need to make a happy childhood or make lemonade out of the lemons that was dealt to us. We started rebuilding, and in this path to rebuilding, my father quit his corporate job and we started going blue collar with our family, and we decided, after finally repurposing the lumber and everything and rebuilding from the materials we had, we started building a nursery. And it took about 4 or 5 years, but normalcy started setting in again and we could start seeing our goal. During this process, my father taught me, with the nurturing of my mother, because sometimes that's a lot of work to do on a kid, but he taught me everything I need to survive out in the world, because he always says, "Son, you'll have to be smarter than me, or else we'd still be living in caves." And I took it to heart. So I learned everything I could and everything he showed me. And so with all this he showed me, we started a nursery, and we started engineering and building the greenhouses, where I learned how to grow plants for the local community. And I'd run tractors, and whenever one of these tractors broke down, my dad called in this guy named Jim, who talked real loud because his hearing was shot from working on tractors all his life. During this time of the nursery, I also learned how to interact with people really well, because I had to sell the plants to everybody else. And I learned a lot about growing things and nurturing things, from a very small object to quite large trees. A couple months after my 19th birthday, I decided it was time for me to get some of my own education, and I decided to leave home. Within 3 months, I found a place to live. I was very naive, hung out with some unsavory people. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I made a few errors in judgment, and I landed myself in prison at the age of 19. 18 years later, I can still tell you that I have held very strongly to the ideals that my father set within me. And everywhere I go, I try to make the place better in any way I can. And I was very fortunate to land in this institution. And in this institution, they nurtured that idea to, get your hands dirty, get out there and do something. And I was able to do that. So me and a few of my friends who are also doing life terms, we come up with this program to where we go out here in the garden, and we created an acre-sized garden that feeds the local food pantries around here. for purpose. For 3 years, I worked in this very room, running the lights and sound, which is no easy task. And every Easter and Christmas, we'd put on these plays on this very stage for the surrounding community. And I tell you what, to listen to an old person laugh like a kid again rebuilds things in you that no money can. I had an excellent support system. My mother and father and sister all insisted taking this picture, of course, during Mustache March. And they have been with me and will always be with me in my entire life. They have given me the very support system I'll always need. My sister recently is going to be married soon to a Greek man named Bobby, and he has a huge family who now all support me too. And then this little lady came into my life 3 years ago. And my fiancée, Kitty, has rebuilt things within me that I didn't even know were broken. And she gave me the vision of a future that I didn't think I had. Now I'm coming down, hopefully, to the end of my prison term. And I set within me a future vision of what I need to do, because when I was a child, I had the future built. And then tragedy happened, just like in the tornado. And now I have to rebuild my future, which causes the question, what's next? A friend of mine 2 months ago went home. Thank goodness. And I asked him, what are you going to do when you get out? He says, as soon as possible, I'm going to leave the country. I said, why? Why do you want to leave the country? He says, no matter what you do, you'll never be anything but an ex-con out there. That goes against a lot of what I believe. But it started sinking in me. Is it a second-class citizenship that I'm going to have to deal with? And I start envisioning things in my mind and placing myself in the future with my wife and kids. And I could imagine what technology is like today. And I'd be out there at the park with my child and my wife, and my kid goes playing with the other kids. And of course, the families talk. So I introduced myself to the family, and they punch my name into their phone and come up with my history, and I'm judged all over again. It's a reality I'm going to have to deal with. And it's a reality that the possibility that they could come and grab their kid from mine and say, you can't play with him, his father's a bad man. Imagine the damage that's caused to that child from my mistake. So I walk forward and I think to myself, at what point do you assess the damage of the future? At what point can you look ahead and say, is a man anything more than the crime he committed? And it strikes a nerve with me. And I says, no, I could show everybody that I can be a benefit to society. Then I toy with the ideas, maybe I might have to leave the country, because this country holds dear to information in a way that a lot of other countries really don't. And I have to assess that for the welfare of my family. And I think about that a lot. So it comes out to, what do you do? How can you assess the future when you can't even envision it? Weatherman can't get it right, how can I? So I look at it in the cold light of day, and I try to make my steps forward in such a way as to be beneficial to all those around me. So, would I really have to move to another country just to become a citizen again? Thank you.